Hello, my dear friends and fellow developers. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to continue our journey in which we are discussing different topics related to our LWC framework. We have came a long way in which we discussed many topics. So let's continue our journey and see what's stored in our today's session. So today in our today's session we will discuss about scope CSS and scope slots. So this is one of the new concept which has been introduced in our LWC framework, which is slotting, or you can say slot mechanism. So today we will discuss about slot in terms of CSS and see how it actually works in our LWC framework. So scope CSS refers to CSS rules that applies only to a specific component or a specific part of a web page. So as you all are aware that our LWC basically use shadow DOM by its default behavior. So with the help of scope CSS, we refer to that only that with the help of containerization, we can have CSS in a controlled manner so that it doesn't bleed out or it should not affect any of the parent component or any other component. So that's how the scope CSS comes into picture. There are two key points which needs to be remembered when we are working with scope CSS, and that is encapsulation and isolation. So what we mean by encapsulation in terms of scope CSS? So styles defined in a component are encapsulated, meaning they don't leak out to affect other parts of an application. Since it is in scope CSS, it is contained in a container, you can say like that. So whatever you will define inside that container, it will be remain in that particular shadow boundary only, or you can say containers boundary only. So you will be able to achieve encapsulation because the data, or you can say here in terms of CSS, will not leak out. Second is the isolation. So external styles cannot penetrate the component. So basically, if it will have isolation in terms of accessibility, so that other components cannot access, or you can say parent component or surrounding component cannot access that particular CSS. So that's how the scope CSS work in terms of our LWC framework, and these are some of the key points. So now here is basically one example in which you can see how the scope CSS work. So here we have one template in which we have a div class named as my component. So basically this div class acts as a container inside which we have one paragraph tag named as this is my component, in which we have styling with the dot my component annotation, or you can say syntax. So basically what we are doing over here in this example is like the dot my class component class style is scope for my component class. So basically whatever we will define inside this my component CSS, it will remain inside this div container whose class name is my parent. So this is how scope CSS work. So basically it ensures that whatever CSS you will apply, it will be applied only to this particular my component class. So if let's suppose there are multiple components outside this div with other paragraph tag, so it will not impact that other tags or data containers. So basically we can achieve encapsulation and isolation in the form of scope CSS. Now the other one which we have in today's session is the slot CSS. So basically slot CSS are the way to pass content from parent component to child component. So basically in scope CSS, what we are doing, we are isolating the component, right? So the data passing will not happen because surrounding component cannot access it. Surrounding component can be any component which is in the same hierarchy or parent. But in this case, we have scope slot. So basically it is used to pass parent component data to child component. So basically, child component can render a data specific to some context. The major functionality or major advantage which we have in slot CSS is like it is more flexible and reusable component. Since it is inheriting the data, or you can say inheriting the CSS from parent, so it can have more reusable component as compared to scope CSS. As we have some key points in scope CSS also, so we have some points in our scope slots also. So basically it is used for content distribution. So basically slots allows us to define a placeholder element in child component. So with the help of this placeholder, we can insert any data from the parent component which we want. Then we have name slot. So basically we can have slots with naming convention so that we can identify that to which slot or to which place of the child component the data has to be rendered. Now, here is one example. So here we have two components, namely my parent component and my chat component. So in my parent component, as you can see, we have two slots named as header and footer, and the same has been derived in our child component with the slot name header. So basically what it will do when this page will be rendered, so whatever we are passing like the slot header content, so it will be repeated as child component. So that's how the slot CSS works, and this is one of the example. So yes, that is for the today's session. Today we discussed what is the difference between scope CSS and slot CSS, and what are the use cases, and when to use what based on the use cases. Hopefully, I was able to explain what is the differences between them and how they actually works. If you have any doubt regarding the today's session, you can drop your doubts and queries in the comment section. I would be happy to answer your queries. If you're watching so far, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Signing off.